Well, what's going well, what's not going so well in this Loco build? I've just been doing the chassis to get a rolling chassis, and the next stage, which might have to wait until next week now, I mean, for 3 or 4 days, is testing, because I've got to attach power onto there and see if it rolls freely. And I'm already expecting there to be binding problems, quartering problems, whatever else there might be on there. So I can imagine there's going to be a lot of tweaking and fiddling with the mechanisms in order to get that to run freely. Because you've only got a relatively small motor driving through a worm and gear onto one wheel, and then you've got all of this, and I've assembled it, but it's not the smoothest and easiest thing. Oh, tiny little thing. These are the water filler caps for the tanks, and I've glued them on there instead of the caps, so I'm going to have to remove those. And another thing, well, one reason why I feel it was a good idea to leave the assembly of that until after I'd actually assembled the foot plate and the body and the boiler is so that I've had time to paint it. Now, rattle can availability meant that it's been painted in blue, but this is a cheap rattle can, and the finish is dreadful. I won't say that the colour is dreadful particularly. I mean, you know, I could live with the colour, but I had spent a lot of time with my filler primer and my plastic primer, and I got a really good smooth finish. And this is meant to be a gloss paint, and there's all sorts of nibs and all sorts of stuff in it, so it's not done a particularly good job. It was a cheap rattle can. Cheap rattle cans can be all right, and you can get a reasonable finish. It's only one coat, and the patches isn't a problem. I can build it. So I'm going to have to do a lot of surface prep on that, and potentially look for a different can. So yeah, the idea of working in parallel. What can we do in parallel? You can do that, whoops, all on its own. You can prepare the boiler, firebox and smoke box all on its own, and you can prepare the bodywork all on its own. It doesn't require any other part to do it, and the frame. So you've got you've got 4 different things that you can be doing in parallel or sequence, so that while you're building this, the paint which you need to put onto those can be drying and hardening. And remember that this group of components here needs the grey or the filler primer, the high build primer, to fill the imperfections and lots of sanding, whereas this just needs keying up and the plastic primer and then the top coat. The same with this is all the acrylic, so those go together. That bit and that bit go together nicely if you want to have some fun with something that goes together relatively well. This is a mess with all the sanding, and this is the complicated bit, which if you do it first, at least you've got the most complicated bit out of the way, and everything else will race ahead. But we'll see how well I've done with it when we go to testing in a couple of days' time. But that's it for now. Any points to raise? There's lots and lots of fiddly things. Countersinking the backs of these, knowing the names of components, so you know what a cross head is, getting the right side for these things, and a couple more pictures or labeling. I wouldn't have got that wrong if they'd labeled the parts. So double check what things are called, because you know the front and back of the boiler. I've still got a part to fit on the front of the boiler, but it's not on now. It's not a problem because I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to slacken off and remove all that and loosen it and take it forward, and I can fit the front part of the boiler on at that time. Other than that, there it is, going together nicely. That's been a virtually one day, a full day. And there it is, dry assembled. I think the colour's going to change, so it's not going to be fixed together yet, because I need to be able to take that and that off. I'm not looking at the things I'm taking off, am I? To be able to paint them separately from this. And this footplate thing isn't attached to the chassis part yet until I've got it running, but it's a good tight fit when you just slot it over, so that will stay.